All right. Good morning. You are tuned into 1100. Good morning. You're tuned into 1100 WSGI. And this is Lee Marie with The Go Show, a special edition Go Show because it is First Friday, which means we have Wild Doc in the house. Super excited about that. And also, First Friday means downtown Springfield will have their big festival tonight. If the rain stays away, we haven't had a lot of luck in that category this year. I think we've only had one First Friday market so far. So we'll see if we get a second one. I don't know. If it rains, we might just go inside Wheel in the Square and line dance. I don't know. We'll see. All right, let's go to the Lord in prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you so much. Thank you for today. Thank you for Robertson County. Thank you for the station. Thank you for all the people that you are putting in our lives at just the exact right time. Please take this show exactly where you want it to go. We have no idea where it's going, but we know you do, and we trust you. We love you. We praise you. We need you. We surrender to you. Please forgive us where we have failed you. In the mighty name of Jesus, amen. All right.
How we doing?
Good. How you doing, Wild Doc?
I'm doing well.
All right. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah.
All right. And thank you, Dareth, for helping me off stage. Appreciate that. All right. So, hey, I don't know, but if anybody missed my show this past Wednesday, make sure you go on YouTube or Facebook and watch it because I had Thomas Gabriel on and he is fascinating. He's amazing. It was so much fun. And after the show, I got to take him to Springfield and walk him around a bunch of places. And people were so excited to see him and meet him. And it was just awesome. And if that name doesn't ring a bell to you, I know that his grandpa's name will. He is the oldest grandson of Johnny Cash. And so that was wonderful on Wednesday to be able to spend some just good quality time with him. And I look forward to more time. So I just want to do a shout out to Thomas also if you're watching now, because I think he might be. All right, Wild Doc. You know, like I said, Go Show. We go wherever the Lord leads us. And how's it been going at the studio, at your wellness studio?
It's great. Yeah, the clinic's been going well. Been helping a lot of people. Yep.
I had a brand new, another one of my students called me a couple days ago.
Okay.
And said, I need that Wild Doc number.
Yeah, nice.
A call from Julianne.
Okay.
So excellent. I'm so glad that some people are realizing that you go for the roots of these causes. You don't want to just shoot out the warning lights. And I really appreciate that because I'm so frustrated. I meet a lot of people in my classes now and that are, they're getting cortisone shots and they're on all these pain meds.
Yeah.
And I just feel so bad because they're not going for the cause.
Yeah. What's sad is when you said cortisone shots, and when you look at the research, there's actually zero difference between the effectiveness of cortisone shots versus saline placebo shots in the same joint.
Oh my.
And they also show that cortisone is a steroid. Most doctors don't explain this to patients, but if you have it injected localized to a joint, it actually causes tissue degradation and degeneration because it's going to actually inhibit the appropriate immunological mechanisms necessary for tissue repair. You take steroids long term, it's well established that it significantly accelerates osteoporosis. So when I look at spines that I've, helped people and still at this point, after they've kind of like at their wits' end, they either have gone through surgery, they want to avoid surgery, they've gone through multiple injections and things like that. I'll take x-rays, look at their spines, and I'll be like, I can literally look at them and be like, you've had probably a dozen injections.
Oh my
and
goodness.
It looks like I'd literally describe it like mashed potatoes sometimes. I'm like, your vertebra, your bones look like mashed potatoes. They are that deteriorated. You have now compression fractures. That's a side effect long-term of multiple repetitive steroid injections localized to the spine, spinal bones. And so, if I went that route, man, I've got articles on that just show it is basically what they consider a worthless treatment because it is only effective for a very short time, on average 20-some days.
Oh my goodness.
Zero restorative capacity. Oh. And then when you have repetitive ones, you're literally on the path to further deterioration of your joints and your bones. So do not block the pain symptoms. Address the underlying root cause to that. And there are multiple mechanisms at play there. There are inflammatory mechanisms that we can address with herbs, vitamins, nutrition, things like that. Also, when you look at the joint function, if I took the splint, put it around my finger, and I leave it there for an entire year, every joint in that finger is going to stiffen up, become arthritic, because there is zero fluid movement through a joint that does not move. So the chiropractic principle, simplest explanation of chiropractic, is restoration of normal movement of those joints. And when you move your joints, it's the only way you pump fluid in and out of them. It's kind of like a sponge. If you do not squeeze that sponge, release that sponge, you are not pumping sufficient fluid through that sponge. So the joints work very, very similar to that. They show that. They show that restoration of movement to those joints accelerates stem cell production localized to those white tissue, meaning your cartilage, your tendons, your ligaments, all that soft tissue around that joint. And you actually can help regenerate to a certain degree. I always tell people, though, good Lord's the only one who's going to give you a picture-perfect spine. I'm not going to do that, but we can improve from where you are now. And so that's what we do.
So you said it causes just damage. Is any of that damage like reversible, or is it just really hard to?
Our body has amazing capacity to heal. So yeah, some of the damage that's been done, but you've got to stop what one is causing the issue in the first place. You have to address that. You have to restore normal, healthy biomechanical movement. You need to work on the inflammatory components that can accelerate and increase adhesions, which accelerates calcification of soft tissue, things like that. And then you work on those mechanisms. There are also underlying immunological mechanisms that can play a part. There are autoimmune diseases that can play a part, things like that. Again, you just have to have a discussion, do the appropriate testing, figure out the underlying factors that are at play with each individual, and then strategize and put together a plan that's going to address the from highest to lowest factors that are driving their problem. And so that's what you got to do first. And then, yes, the body can heal even from, the damage done and the inhibition of appropriate immunological processes necessary for tissue remodeling and tissue repair caused by steroid injections.
Wow. Ugh. I know that we weren't planning on talking about this, but I feel like it's somewhat related. I've also had a couple friends lately that have had spinal surgeries, fusing things and all that. Can you get? I know.
Mm-hmm.
Is it ever a good time or ever a good reason to fuse your back?
Let me see where it is. I'm going to look here on my computer if I can find so I can actually read some stuff.
And while he's looking that up, I just want to let you all know that we are on Facebook and YouTube Live, so please share this show. We are a Christian station, so we don't just come up randomly. We need your help to share this show. Also, we do have the app. We have an app for Apple as well as for Android, so we hope that you guys will download the WSGI app. And just remember that Wild Doc is on every first Friday, and we welcome your hard questions. Maybe you've been going to a lot of doctors, getting a lot of treatments, and you haven't been getting a lot of results. Maybe just more test after test. Well, go see Wild Doc because he really loves to go to the root cause of things. That's why his place is called Wild Roots Wellness. It is in Clarksville. It is not that far from Springfield. For those of you who are listening, it's only about 25 minutes now. It used to be over 30, but he moved a little bit closer. He's inching his way to Springfield.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a kind of an inside joke there. But anyway, did you find the article yet?
I found quite a few. I've saved them. There was one of the things that many people don't realize is for conditions such as arthritis, degenerative disc disease, herniations, things like that, spinal fusions have actually been judged by an expert panel signed by the FDA and government to look into whether Medicaid, Medicare should continue to pay for those procedures for those conditions. Now, if you have a shattered back, you had a horrible traumatic car accident, things like that, yes, stabilizing the spine is critically necessary. Don't get me wrong, that there are circumstances that can allow for a fusion to be potentially seriously beneficial. But for the most common, they said for the most common conditions, a vote of 1 to 5, the expert panel, some of which they said owned stock and owned patents on the implanted devices. Yeah, you shake your head, but get this, Lee, they voted a 1.5
Oh,
on its ability to help people. It was on average 70% of the time people who underwent fusion surgery were worse off. Here is the long-term outcomes of lumbar fusion among workers' compensation subjects, a historical cohort study. This is Journal of Spine, okay? The lumbar fusion for the diagnosis of disc degeneration, disc herniation, and radiculopathy, that means radiating pain into your arm, into your leg, things like that. In the lumbar spine, obviously be down your legs, like sciatica. Workers' compensation settings is associated with a significant increase in disability, opiate use, prolonged work loss, and poor return to work status and opportunity. So there you go.
oh,
The
goodness.
literally, and this was a comparison of, okay, 100 people. I mean, they took actually more than 100 people. They took several hundred people. Number here is like 483 non-surgical controls and 188 of those fusion patients. So they literally show that statistically speaking, you are way more likely to not be able to go back to work if you get a lumbar fusion
Wow.
than people who have the same diagnosis, the same underlying, roughly the same. Obviously, not every human being is the same. But it's like, hey, you have disc deterioration. Hey, you have arthritis. Hey, you have a herniated disc. Fusion, less likely to go to work, more drug use, things like that. I had a surgical nurse, an assistant up in Hopkinsville that worked at the hospital on the surgery floor that does spinal fusion. She's like, Dale, I guarantee you, I probably see at least 7 out of 10 patients come back into the office, and then we implant electrodes and we up their prescriptions and then we start the injections more. She's like, it's literally like you do the surgery and these people are back in our office more frequently after the surgeries. You know, and then I could go on. This is a spinal fusion surgery may leave some back pain patients worse off. It's not some, it's the majority. It leads to higher rates of permanent disability for workers' compensation patients compared to those non-surgically treated. Nearly all outcome categories I'm reading straight from this study. Nearly all outcome categories were worse in the surgical group. Quarter had to return to work after 2 years. Only about a quarter had returned to work after 2 years compared to 2/3 of the non-surgical patients. 11% were permanently disabled compared to 2% of those who did not go through with the surgery. 85% of spinal fusion patients continue to use opioids versus only 49% of non-surgical patients.
Wow.
It's the people who choose non-surgical routes like chiropractic, physical therapy, exercise, things like that. And then you can incorporate the other different various therapies known to help in tissue repair and modeling. And 36% of spinal fusion group had complications from the surgery, including meningitis, kidney failure, and death as a side effect of fusion of their spines. The reoperation rate was also roughly 27%. Dr. Trang, who practices occupational medicine in Cincinnati and conducted the research while on his doctorate candidate at the University of Cincinnati College of Medicine, the chances are it will have a poor outcome. The likely chances are it will have a poor outcome is what people should be told. I mean, just like going on, Journal of American Medical Association, April 2010, for example, indicates that the use of complex surgical procedures such as spinal fusions to treat back pain has risen more than 15-fold over the prior 6 years, despite the fact that the operations are riskier and not more effective.
All right.
I mean, that's one article.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
there's one that, oh my gosh, I'm not sure if it's this one. Unnecessary surgeries cost the United States people roughly $150 billion. That's what the government estimates. That doctors who do the fusion, and they said that pain treatment and surgical procedures are better at bringing in cash for hospitals than cancer care is. It's like one of the ways I used to say this was like, what's sad is that people oftentimes will do anything, take anything, accept anything to get out of pain. Like it's suffering. Cancer doesn't always come with pain. It comes oftentimes with this fear of dying, but some people will just accept that and say, nope, don't want the treatments, don't want to do that, or I've had enough, I'm not going to go through it. If they can put somebody through a procedure that increases the need for all medical care following that procedure. I mean, just take what is like neurology and proprioception compared to nociception. These are neurological terms, all right? Every neurologist should know this. If you increase proprioception, you decrease nociception. All right, nociception is how the brain perceives pain through nociceptive nerve fibers. So when you increase proprioception, which is biomechanical movement, it's vibration, it's sensory system. And one of the biggest sensory systems is proprioceptive movement of the joints. All right, you watch somebody sprain their ankle, you watch somebody burn their hand, they're in pain. They shake their hand when they burn it. It's not to cool it down by the air. It's actually to move their body to down-regulate the intensity of pain. When they twist their ankle, they don't just sit still and don't move. They wiggle, they move, they rock back and forth. They rub their ankle. Ooh, that hurt. I've got to rub it. I got to move it. That's all sensory proprioceptive input into that area, especially when you move the joint. So what does a fusion do? Again, neurology, biomechanics, 101. When you fuse a spine, you substantially reduce proprioceptive input to the brain, which automatically increases the likelihood of increased nociception. So it's like, what do you think's going to happen? If you decrease proprioception, you increase. It's a seesaw. It's a teeter-totter. You increase so no wonder they're in more pain. No wonder they need more pharmaceutical drugs. There was one woman, I don't know if it's this one or not, but they talk about this one woman. So here's some different ones. Manuel, he was 56, so this is actually one of the Twin City spine surgeons, Dr. Manuel Pinto, 56, earned $1.85 million from the practice in 2007, according to filings in his divorce proceedings that year. He told the Superior Court in Minneapolis that he and his wife's assets included Porsches, Ferraris, Mercedes-Benz, 2 other cars, 3 boats, proceeds for $1 million sale of the farm after Pinto. Okay, Twin City Spine doesn't have any scientifically validated studies on the success of fusion for those in the group that he fused. Measuring, so I'm just reading highlights I have from this article. Again, the article is titled Doctors Getting Rich with Fusion Surgery, Yet Debunked by Studies. They even the hospitals refer to their spinal surgeons as high rollers, like they're playing games in Vegas, that they protect them. Measuring outcomes has been difficult because researchers, doctors, and payers can't agree on the criteria for success. Living Well with Back Pain, a 2006 consumer guide produced by Twin Cities Spine, published at HarperCollins, states that with proper patient selection, optimal surgical techniques, the success for spinal fusion surgery for back pain is now about 90%. But their success is they put the device in properly according to what they're trained, and the spine doesn't move anymore. That's how they judge success. Like that was their success criteria. So it's like 90% of the time we don't screw up what we were supposed to do, but yet because of the way the body was designed by God to allow for movement to help us regulate and deal with pain and regulate our nervous system, we now have put somebody in a situation that physiologically, neurologically, biomechanically actually increases their likelihood of chronic disabling pain. Like that is, so it's like 70% of the time when it comes to ask the patient, are they better? No, they're not. They're worse. They need more drugs. They need to go through repeat surgeries. They talk about, I don't know if it's this one or maybe another one. Like, you got me fired up here. Like, it's insane.
Well,
Okay, good.
We're at almost 8:30, so I need to do a couple commercial breaks, and then we do need to go over our heart condition question that came in. And before I do these breaks, I do want to read to you, Wild Doc, a couple additional pieces of information that the patient had sent me, who will remain anonymous. They have had 5 stents, a double bypass. They're 51 years old. They made diet changes, but they still have blockages about once a year. So I just want to give you that additional information while I go ahead and do a couple of our commercial breaks here for our fabulous sponsors. Southside Drug Co. right here in Springfield is a family-owned drugstore. These are great guys. We really need to be supporting them. They now have a lot of cool things. It's not just a pharmacy. They have a lot of homemade gifts. Matter of fact, Linda, one of our assistants here at WSGI, she's taken some of her craft items over there, and they're doing really well because they're beautiful and the prices are wonderful. So stop into Southside, say hi, tell them that Lee Marie sent you. Their hours are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. and Saturday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. For more information, you can visit them at southsidedrugco.com. Their address is 1000 South Main Street in Springfield. Okay, also, Ridgetop Mower. I know that a lot of you guys are stopping to mow. Praise the Lord, the grass has stopped growing. Oh my goodness. But make sure you're keeping your mowers in good shape, guys, because you don't want to have to buy a whole new one. It's much easier to just service it. And, you know, if you need a part, Gary's got a lot of stuff in stock. If you go in there, you will be amazed. It's so organized. But anyways, Gary Rastelli over at Ridgetop Mower of Springfield is located right in between Baldwin Barbecue and Ace Hardware on Matthew Street, 1100 Matthew Street. Their number is 615-855-0044. That's 615-855-0044. Maybe you just need your blade sharpened, or you need to get your equipment ready to be stored for winter, or maybe you have one of those kerosene heaters that you need serviced before it gets cold. Well, get in line now because it'll take a lot less time now. Also, if you have unwanted equipment, and I know a lot of people do have something in their yard, they're just waiting until it's completely dysfunctional. Well, if you know you're going to get rid of it, kind of like in the fridge, right? You don't want to throw something away because it's not all the way bad. But you're like, okay, in another day, I can really throw this away. Just call Gary, have him pick up the unwanted equipment because he might be able to get something off of it that can still be of use to someone, right? And this is a good time because they're not swamped because the grass has mellowed out. Praise the Lord. So Ridgetop Mower of Springfield, one of our favorite sponsors. And then lastly, DK Styles. School started. Some of you did not get a haircut, so you want to get over to DK Styles. They're right on Tom Austin Highway at 3538. And they are fabulous. Everybody there is just so professional. Their hours are Monday through Friday, 9 to 7, Saturdays, 8 to 3. And you can call in and make an appointment, 615-384-8999. Again, that's 615-384-8999. Be sure to tell them Lee Marie sent you and check out what they have because now they even have a manicurist. They have a lot of stuff. You can get, styling, color, perms, waxing, a whole bunch of things. So over at DK Styles, our favorite place to get our hair done. All right, we are back in the studio with Wild Doc. He has Wild Roots Wellness in Clarksville. And before we go any further, Wild Doc, because I know some people are already like, this guy knows what he's talking about. What's your phone number over there?
931-591-2010 is the phone number there at the office in Clarksville, Tennessee, just off exit 11.
All right. So we had our big heart question come in. Very serious. So what can you let us know? Any advice at all is much appreciated.
So we can talk for a minute. What I would say is I'll start it here. Yes, there's a lot of issues with the way in which we treat heart disease in America. You mentioned that the guy has had multiple stents. Stents do not address in any way, shape, or form the cause of cardiovascular disease, the narrowing arteries, things like that. In fact, let me see. I like this article. This is one I said way back when, but it talked about how President George Bush was having a stent procedure. But yet, little known fact for most people, they said that the stents attract immune cells and build up plaque because it's a foreign object in the body. And it causes inflammation within the arteries because it's a foreign object in your body. You ever got like a splinter? Oh, yeah. And then it like reddens up, pusses up. Those are all immunological mechanisms trying to get a foreign object out of your body. So they attract the immune system. 25% of stented arteries are blocked again in 6 months or less. That is, most people aren't saying, and I get it. Somebody who's having shortness of breath, upon exertion, they're feeling chest pain, things like that. In a situation, this is the catch-22. In a situation, it's great to use axes and fire hoses to put out a fire. Mm-hmm. It's great to use surgery to save somebody's life. Mm-hmm. A phenomenal documentary for this individual to watch mm-hmm. would be called Escape Fire. Okay.
Escape Fire?
Yes. Okay. So, Escape Fire, the title comes off of the idea that I forget the firefighters, he was a smoke jumper, and he went into the wilderness to fight a fire with his team. And their team, the wind had shifted, the fire was coming at them very fast. They were never going to outrun it. So he stopped in the middle of a field as the whole team's running. Said, we're all going to be overtaken by this fire. We cannot escape. He lit a fire at its feet, begged and pleaded for his team to stay with him. None of them listened. Everyone died but him. The answer was right there to save all of those lives. Literally, the documentary documents various different techniques, from treatments like acupuncture for pain and things like that. And I think it's phenomenal using the nervous system to help treat people with chronic pain. And that would be something that I would be advocating for after we utilize things that restore biomechanical function and we help them with pain, or we use acupuncture for post-operative pain, like they talk about that. But they also go through cases where gentleman comes in, he's like in for his 5th heart surgery. And one of the ladies, now it sounded like this gentleman or whoever it is changed diet and nutrition, which is a major component. But it's not the entire situation. I'll give you an example here in a minute about Davy Jones, singer from the Monkees. And so they talk, this guy, this doctor who actually knows a thing or two, works at the Cleveland Clinic, I believe it was, asked the gentleman who's in there for like his 5th heart surgery, goes, so when do you think would be a good time to change your nutrition? Once they figure out what's really causing my heart problems? Like, that was just it's sad, and many times there's negative connotation around the term ignorance, but it's just unknowing. But it's like, it's ignorant and deceptive. It's more deceptive and unethical for the medical community to continue to not utilize the research that is easily available to all of us just searching PubMed on the various different strategies and mechanisms that drive cardiovascular disease. Neurological inflammation, neurogenic inflammation. That's why, so when I go to this article, I love this one. This is literally a God moment for me. I literally said a prayer because I was reading. There's literally 1, 2, 3, 4 short sentences, and then the 5th sentence. I got to about the 4th, and I literally was getting on a plane in 2012, and I would save articles and things like that back then, read about what's being talked about in health news, and then come up with ways to communicate to my patients the differences between my clinic and the medical system, the reactive care, the symptomatic care. More proactive care is what we do. And so while we can help people reactively recover by addressing the cause, and that's what gives them the greatest opportunity for the longest life and the greatest quality of life. And so I literally stopped. I said, all right, why am I reading about Davy Jones? I don't know this guy. I'm not really into music. So I was like, yeah, push it to the side. I just about did this. But then this sentence comes next. He was a vegetarian. There was not an ounce of fat on the guy, Jacobson said. He lived on the beach in Florida and ran miles every single morning. This is the last person I expected this to happen to. He couldn't have been in better shape. And I said right then and there, I said, thank you, God. But I want you, I prayed to God and I said, I want you to show me in this article, give me something where I can teach my patients how important it is to take care of their spine, specifically the regions where the nerves branch into the cardiovascular system, into the heart. I said that prayer and God answered it. Now, if I can give you a little joke. So I was reading through it, and then there's this sentence that says Jones was married 3 times, and I said maybe it's stress. 3 wives, man, I got 1. She stresses me out. No, I'm kidding, babe. I love you.
No.
But I was like, maybe it was stress. I mean, if there's 3, but here was God's answer to me to help connect it to the spine. He told Britain's Daily Mail the year before that he used to be 5'4" tall, but he had actually lost an inch. That was the only significant health history he had. So according to medicine, he's eating the best diet. What's sad is a vegetarian diet eliminates healthy fats from the diet. In Europe, here's an article. In Europe, it's fish oil after a heart attack, but not in the U.S. And in fact, in Italy, if you do not prescribe fish oil after a heart attack, you can be sued for medical malpractice in Italy.
Wow.
All right? And they say this, watch this. The fact that heart patients receive such different treatments in sophisticated hospitals around the world compared to the United States that get you dead last in your opportunity to live as long as you could after a heart attack or just not get a heart attack. U.S. gets dead last. Highlights the central role that drug companies play in disseminating medical information, meaning they lie to your doctors, they convince your doctors through financial incentives to tell you that cholesterol is bad for you and it causes heart disease, which it's well documented not to. They don't prescribe cholesterol drugs. They prescribe a healthy fat. You know, so I could argue in a sense, yes, I could argue in a sense that because Davy Jones was a vegetarian, if he was not appropriately supplementing, you can drive inflammation through anemia. If you are iron deficient, if you have low hemoglobin, things that are associated with a vegetarian diet for many people who cannot assimilate and absorb iron efficiently from plant sources, they can go anemic. No cell in your body can survive without oxygen. So if you are anemic, you can't carry oxygen. So that is a component of the possibility that could drive cardiovascular disease, is anemia. Because when cells can't get enough energy, oxygen, they will either die or they don't function well. And so those 2 components can drive inflammatory responses, damage associated molecular patterns, and all of those processes lead to further and further damage and plaque buildup over time. Okay? But he shrunk. I can show you a Journal of American Medical Association shows that men who shrink 3 centimeters or more from forward head posture and spinal deterioration have a 64% greater mortality risk, death from every cause out there. Cancer, heart disease, everything. And more than a 200% increase in cardiovascular mortality from shrinking. So I said, God, thank you so much, because I had already had the study from the Archives of Internal Medicine and Journal of American Medical Association 2006 that says height loss of 3 centimeters in older men is independently seen, meaning is the sole risk factor that is associated with the increased risk of all-cause mortality and coronary artery disease. So, and the way you lose height is not from your long bones like your femurs and your legs. It's from deterioration of your spine. You have 24 segments in your spine, so you have all these discs that when they deteriorate, that's where you lose your height, or you lose it from what you see the elderly posture go into. And what they show is when that posture, the Dowser's hump on women's back, is an independent risk factor for cardiovascular disease. Migraine headaches are an independent risk factor for cardiovascular disease. They are your check engine light, ladies. I'm saying that because the majority of people dealing with migraines are women. It's a sign of systemic full body inflammation, not just brain, and it is a sign of decreased blood flow to the brain, basically a hypoxic environment going on there, because you typically are dealing with inflammation and spasming or tightening of the arteries, decreased blood flow. We correct that all the time. I have a woman who's dealing with a headache daily for countless months. I've treated her 5 times, 5 adjustments. She has 0 headaches the last week. So we are addressing the cause of, Biomechanical problems of the spine create a stress response, and the nervous system can actually alter the signaling between the brain and the heart, the brain and the blood vessels. And I'm not the only one who says it. This is the Journal of Osteopathic Medicine. This is not a chiropractic journal. These are doctors of osteopath and MD, 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 MD right here. All of these medical physicians saying what I'm saying. Osteopathic, this is their term they use for doctors of osteopathic medicine. We call it an adjustment in chiropractic. We adjust the spine. They call it osteopathic bone manipulation. So they call it osteopathic manipulation as a complementary treatment for the prevention of cardiac complications. 12-month follow-up of intima, media, and blood pressure or on a cohort affected by hypertension. They said that osteopathic treatment was significantly associated to improvement in all primary cardiac endpoints.
Wow.
All. Because your nervous system controls all. Everything that goes on in your body, from your immune system to the degree of inflammatory responses, to the dilation, to the expansion of blood vessels, to the contraction of your heart. Our study shows that among the patients affected by cardiovascular disorders, osteopathic treatment is significantly associated with improvements in the blood vessel function and blood pressure after 1 year. And what were they doing? They were adjusting, or they called it manipulating the spine, in the regions where the nerves go from your spine, communicating brain to body information, communicating the signals from the brain to the heart, and the heart functioned better because of it. So there's your neurogenic pathways that can drive. Just like Davy Jones, if somebody would have got a hold of him, started adjusting him, kept him from his spine deteriorating, I believe he'd, I mean, that was 2012. He was 66, maybe, right? He probably could have lived another 20 years or more.
All right. Now, the people who have had stents out there, I don't want them getting more stressed right now because there is hope. They can go see you, right? They can go get some adjustments and help.
Well, the stress causes them to take action.
Okay. All right.
I'm just
saying is that I know a lot of people that have had stents, and I know that, some of them have saved, and they've gone, been rushed to emergency.
Yeah.
And, they saved their lives with that, is what I've been told.
Yeah.
So I do know a lot of people with stents. I don't want them to get freaked out at this because there is hope. They're still alive.
Yes,
There's hope.
They can, but they have to get to somebody and work with somebody who's actually going to spend the time necessary to walk you through the multiple mechanisms, do appropriate testing, blood work, and things like that, looking at immunological mechanisms, walking through the dietary changes. My grandfather had multiple open heart surgeries when I was younger. He was going to the Cleveland Clinic. You know what I found out? I found out there was a doctor, there was a documentary where it talks about you can use plant-based nutrition, all right, to help reduce calcification of the coronary arteries. So for time periods, nutrition, plant-based, again, I'm not saying plant-based is negative all the time, but it long-term can lead to anemia. Long-term can lead to deficits in B vitamins. Long-term can lead to deficits and deficiencies in fat-soluble vitamins like vitamin A and others necessary for proper immune control and modulation or balance. And those lack of appropriate nutrition can then lead to further inflammation. But for time periods, for oftentimes several months, you can use plant-based nutrition. They found this out in Cleveland Clinic. While my grandfather was being treated there, they had published these studies. But the researchers who worked at the Cleveland Clinic were actually legally barred by the board of directors of the Cleveland Clinic from treating patients after they published the studies that the treatment with people who had had multiple heart attacks or coming in and needed quote unquote surgery to save their lives, even if they could get them stable and we weren't dead right now, basically, all right, we're going to put you on a plant-based diet for 3 months. We're going to monitor your blood vessels. They opened up, they deplaqued. So on the documentary, I believe it was Forks Over Knives, and it talks about the use, and they advocate for plant-based, but again, if you are on a plant-based diet, you need to be on appropriate supplementation to avoid the risk of iron anemia, B vitamin anemia, and fat-soluble nutrient and vitamin anemia. Okay. And so that long term can be very lacking. All right. And they show this. So, but it's so frustrating to me because it's like, so my grandfather could have lived a whole lot longer, but the researchers who published the research that they could have done something better for my grandfather were legally not allowed to because of it detrimental effect. The board member said detrimental. They were allowed to treat executive board members, he says. Once he got out of the Cleveland Clinic, he basically blew the whistle that they were restricting and not implementing something that could have extended and saved lives and be a more effective treatment than drugs and surgery. Could have extended the life of my grandfather. You want to know why I get worked up about this stuff? It's because people are dying today because the medical establishment has not utilized the research and evidence that has clearly painted the picture that we are doing a disservice to people in this nation because we are not addressing the root cause. We are not utilizing tools that have better efficacy than the knives and the drugs that they're using.
That says it all right there. Oh, very good. And fish oil, the importance of fish oil. Man, that's also good to know because I know I'm supposed to be taking quite a few every day, so I need to.
Grass-fed beef also has amazing amounts. Regenerative farming.
Okay.
So fish oil is really good omega-3, and that's where the primary source. It's a simple supplementation, things like that.
But also get grass-fed beef anytime you get. Okay.
Grass-fed beef, eat the fat. Really good for you. Don't burn it, though. Don't oxidize it in your skillet and things like that.
Yeah. And that's a whole nother talk sometime about, the dangers of all the burnt food that people like to, they think that they're being healthier by burning all
char grilled.
It's like, Anyways, I do want to talk about a couple more friends before we run out of time, and that is UPS, guys. You know Deborah Grant over there. We love Deborah. We love the whole family of folks over there. They're at 513 Memorial Boulevard in Springfield, right by H.G. Hill. And not only can they, of course, take your Amazon packages, but they can do printing of all sorts of things, even big banners, like if you want to do a happy birthday banner or whatever. And it's a real quick turnaround, guys. So they have somebody on staff that can help you design your business card or whatever you need, little badges. They have like a whole catalog of things you can order. And they always have coupons, and their coupons don't expire. So just go ahead and hold those every month. And they do shredding too, guys. So make sure you get in there to UPS 513 Memorial Boulevard in Springfield and tell them that Lee Marie sent you. All right, lastly, Coldstream Camp, which is real close to Wild Dock because they are in Adams. So I pass Coldstream Camp every time I go to Wild Dock, actually. It is a beautiful campground that has been serving our families and churches here in Robertson County since 1980. And they provide you can rent the whole campground, which, all the cabins and the houses and everything, or you can just rent one of the houses and have like a smaller, like say you just want to have like a ladies retreat and you just, need a place for like 20. They have that. So you want to get by and see what they have because it's beautiful. They have a big lake and like one of the houses is on the lake. It's just absolutely beautiful over at Coldstream. So make sure you tell them Lee Marie sent you. Here's the phone number, 615-696-2208. Again, that's 615-696-2208. Or you can visit their website, coldstreamchristiancamp.org. But let me tell you guys, make sure you get your dates reserved early because this is probably the most popular Christian campground here in Robertson County. And so the dates do fill up fast. So it's never too early to call and get your reservation over at Coldstream. All right, we only have about 8 or so minutes left. We're talking to Wild Doc, also known as Dr. Dale Brown. And he has helped so many of my friends, including myself. And so that's why I say, Wild Doc, you need to come on my show once a month because, as the Bible say, people are dying because of a lack of knowledge. And so that's why I have Wild Doc come out here and address health issues because I have so many friends that keep going for more tests, more doctors because their insurance covers it. Well, actually, you guys even you take some insurance, right?
Blue Cross Blue Shield is probably the best for chiropractic portion of things, but honestly, probably the end of the year, we're just going to done. It takes hours upon hours. Like it's so sad. Get something like MediShare, Samaritan Ministries. My family of 7 spends about $300, a little over $300 a month $10,000 deductible. I have friends with smaller families that their jobs take out of paycheck and things like that, or they pay because they're business owners themselves, and they pay over $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
And so in 10 months, I've saved
Right. Yeah, I have never shared.
$10,000, put it in my own bank account, let it build interest. Also, we're designing at Wild Roots Wellness and Rooted Family Wellness, we're actually looking into developing not an insurance, but let's take, for instance, something that I'm going to start incorporating at my clinic is, so just an idea that I had, my son had got kind of undercut in his soccer game, and man, that hard clay soil on them soccer fields hit his head. And so I have the tools through chiropractic to treat the cervical spine, and also infrared, red light, hyperbarics to treat post-concussion. And within 24 hours, we can literally save exponentially more neurons after brain injury. So what we're going to start doing is implementing different types of therapies that are, so with concussions, we don't know whether the child is going to suffer with the long-term ramifications of a head impact, a TBI or concussion because of that, until you wait and see if they have it. And that's the game the medical community plays, is we'll see if the ramifications cause him harm. All right, if it persists, and then we'll treat with medications. Again, so infrared induced TBI in animal studies, they do this and they put infrared on their brains. It literally halted the cascading inflammatory neuronal damage. Also, there's things called a Q-collar. I'm going to be partnering with Q-collar that does slight compression of the veins that pull blood and allow blood to drain off of the brain, and that helps to backfill those veins just a little bit. It's kind of like if you put a rubber band around your arm, but it's not tight enough to block the arterial pressure from pushing blood into your extremity, but it's just enough pressure on those veins, because veins are not under as much pressure, so it will kind of backfill the arm a little bit, and you'll see the veins kind of pop up a little bit. And so same thing happens internally in the skull. And these are FDA cleared devices accepted by lacrosse associations, NFL, soccer associations, that what they do is they create a backfill of fluid, blood flow in the brain, and that cushions the brain and lessens the degree of sloshing, kind of shifting of the brain that causes that neuronal damage, even micro traumas. And the studies on that are just amazing. But what we're doing in our clinic too, though, is what I found is I only charge $35 for an infrared therapy treatment right now. And I'll ask parents, and I've had some, well, he hit his head over the weekend. Do you think we need it? I'm like, well, we won't know until we find that the headaches don't go away. We won't know until he starts having reading problems. We won't know until he starts having depression. We won't know, because all of those are long-term risks that are increased for every head injury, a soccer player, football player, everybody like that. And so if we can use devices to prevent the degree of damage, then we can apply within the first 24 hours. It's amazing. Within first 48 hours, decent. After 48 hours, you are into that cascading event where there's enough neuronal damage. But it stayed almost 100% of neuronal damage that was induced via TBI induction. And so you got rats over here, no infrared, no red light therapy. Over here, within 24 hours, red light therapy, infrared therapy on their brains, and it saved so many neurons. And so it's like, we're going to start offering, like, because I don't want to be like, okay, mom, I don't know whether they're going to need it or not. I don't know whether they're going to persist with symptoms. If he hit his head, he's got some small degree of neuronal damage going on right now, and it enough that it's going to further increase. So they can be okay the next day, and then 2 or 3 days later, they start suffering because after the head injury, you have a cascading event of inflammation so you have the initial damage that causes damage to the neurons. Those neurons actually break apart, and they're not dying due to natural cellular apoptosis, which is programmed cell death. And so by damage, you have damage-associated molecular patterns that influence the infiltration of immune cells that create inflammatory cytokines that then damage neighboring neurons, and then they could actually break apart and die inappropriately, and then the ones next to them die.
Wow.
And so this is the cascading event after a TBI or concussion. Red light infrared actually saves those neurons in the surrounding area from dying. So it exponentially saves and prevents this cascading event. But we don't know whether we quote unquote need the treatment or not, because we don't know what degree that cascading event is going to occur within each individual until we watch what happened. And it can take like 60 treatments to get the same regenerative capacity with certain therapies like hyperbarics and infrared to regain it if it's been years since the injury.
Gotcha.
Versus one treatment. So we're going to start for all sports athletes, all of our patients.
Well, and that's
I really
a great
feel
price.
that God's led me to say, hey, I don't want you to have to decide.
Right.
And it's crazy to me, but I'm like $35. It's
Right.
not a big deal.
And
I'm
the
like,
thing
but I'm like,
is-
you're a member. You get 3. I don't know. We'll set the number. You get at least 3 infrared and hyperbarics if you have an acute injury, because God forbid I prevent them and that 35 prevents them, or you know what I mean. They needed to replace a washer and dryer and they didn't have the 35 and I didn't apply the treatment, so I couldn't live with myself like that. So I'm going to just start doing that stuff.
Yeah, and then really the moral of the story too is, if you can go and get to the root of things and get the correct treatment right away, insurance, to me, 'cause some health insurance plans, it seems like it's gift certificates to a store you don't want to go to, or you shouldn't go to, right?
Yep.
Because, and I see people all the time go, well, I'm going to this other 5th specialist because I have insurance. It's like, okay, great.
Yeah.
Why don't you go to Wild Doc and, instead of wasting 5 days that you had to take off from work, or, start all these crazy medicines that are bad for you, just because your insurance pays for it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a good reason. Yeah, I have Medishare and I've had it for probably 15 years. And that's great. I concentrate on wellness and preventative.
Yeah. I see people like yesterday, a patient of ours. We come here. I thank you for the opportunity to kind of teach people the truth and teach people here on the radio. But really our practice runs, I was listening to somebody else, a chiropractor who spends $2,500 a month on advertising. I spend $0. Unless you say my website is advertising, but we don't pay for Google top lists. We don't pay for any ads, nothing like that.
You don't need to, because
no, it's all word of mouth. Those are the best patients. But a patient of mine, really thank her, because she got a friend of hers to come in, but this woman has been through specialists.
Mm-hmm.
And like, she's driving me her symptoms and stuff like that. And she's like, you've, in literally 20, 30 minutes of just having a discussion, she's like, you've given me more information, more understanding of what's going on in my body than anybody else, any of the neurologists, any of the specialists. They've tested me for everything, and none of them fit the criteria for a diagnosis of whether it be POTS or anything else. And so it's like, and I'm like, what we have to do now is we have to strategize and look at when this came on, what are the physiological factors that could drive this autonomic nervous system dysfunction? What can we do to help your body? What's sad is medicine will wait until enough criteria, which will build up over time, to diagnose you with rheumatoid arthritis, with lupus, with POTS, and that's a label. That's a name to your blood work and your symptoms. That's it. But the physiological mechanisms and the contributing factors that cause those physiological mechanisms to drive that disease process are not addressed by the mainstream medicine. All right. That's what I do in my clinic. I'll take, what are all the known physiological mechanisms that drive these problems, these symptoms, and what do we do good for you now? What do we immediately start doing good for your body to be able to heal, to function properly, for you to feed it properly so that it can regenerate and heal? Because the body wants to do that. You just got to give it the right things, and you got to create the appropriate environment, both structurally and environmentally, that gives the body the conducive situation to heal itself, because it can.
Well, I do appreciate all that you're doing and all of my friends that you're healing. I really appreciate it. So give your phone number one more time.
Phone number there at the office is 931-591-2010. Again, that's 931-591-2010.
All right, guys. And if you missed Wednesday's show, the Go Show does go over calendar items, and we do have a lot coming on because it's the first week of the month. So this Saturday, the GOP meets at 8:30 for their monthly potluck, followed by 9 o'clock. They're going to have folks from the election office coming in and explaining how the election machines and voting and all that works. Monday is a big day because we're starting some brand new classes over at Well in the Square. We have Carla is going to be doing from 9:30 to 11:30, sewing and mending. And so if you have stuff that needs to be mended and maybe you don't even want to do it, come to the class, $20, bring whatever you want. She'll mend as much as she can or alter it. Super fun class, 9:30 to 11:30, $20. After that, from 2 to 3, she's doing how to homeschool. She homeschooled for over 15 years. She has got lots of great advice on teaching big groups of kids of different ages at the same time, doing unit studies. She has so much. That class is free if you RSVP ahead of time. So make sure you look at Well in the Square Facebook page and get registered for that. Then that night at Well in the Square, the Tennessee Firearms Association Robertson County chapter has their monthly meeting. Remember, they always meet the second Monday of every month. They are going to be inside. So you go inside Crossroads, go to the back ballroom. That is where the TFA meets. They do their 6 o'clock, they potluck, and 6:30 is the program. It's going to be really fun. They're having a state trooper actually come out with his K9 and talk about some really great stories. He spoke to John Harris's group actually last month, and it was so great that we're having him come out. Speaking of John Harris's group, he is the executive director of the statewide Tennessee Firearms Association. And this coming Saturday, he's having General Michael Flynn come and speak at their annual dinner. I think there's still a few tickets left for that, so you can go onto TennesseeFirearmsAssociation.com website and check that out. All right, guys, otherwise, just listen to the old Go Show from Wednesday. It's excellent. Anyway, and you can meet Thomas Gabriel, Johnny Cash's grandson, and that was a great interview. I really appreciate Thomas coming on. He had so much wonderful insight and wonderful inspiration, and a lot of people enjoyed that show. But thank you, Wild Doc. You have so much great information, and I just really appreciate everything that you're doing, and you're hitting it from all angles.
Well, the good Lord led me to learn it and know it, so I'm just doing what he told me to. Take care of his
like my shirt
people,
says, right?
his kids.
See what my shirt says?
The warrior God called you to be. I like it.
It says, be the warrior God called you to be. So I hope you guys will all do that. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful weekend. I'm sure I'll see a lot of you guys out and about. And you've been listening to 1100 WSGI. Make sure to share this show. God bless.